You're just the nanny, so enjoy these days, sweetheart. Because the second I marry him, you're fired. And those girls, boarding school, far away. Emma didn't say a word. She just stood there, jaw tight, feeling the kitchen go cold around her. Evelyn smiled, the kind of smile that isn't meant to warm you, it's meant to cut. She turned and walked out, leaving a trail of expensive perfume and contempt behind her. What Evelyn didn't know was that on the other side of the door, two little girls had heard every single word, and they already had a plan. 3 weeks earlier, Alexander Whitman was 39 years old. He ran a company worth more than most people could count, and his house most days looked like a war zone. Not because of money, he had plenty of that, because of two 6-year-olds who, according to the last nanny who quit, had, quote, the souls of tiny generals trapped in the bodies of angels. Ava and Mia. Twins, identical to look at, nothing alike once you got to know them. They'd lost their mom 2 years ago. Car accident. Fast, senseless, the kind that doesn't give you time to say goodbye. Since then, Alex had become a different man, quieter, colder, somewhere else, even when he was in the room. Not because he didn't love his daughters. He loved them so much it scared him sometimes. He just didn't know how to be present without it hurting. Work was easier than feeling. And in that silence, the girls found their own way to scream that they missed him. Pranks one after another. They'd run off 4 nannies in under a year. Mr. Whitman, the latest one said, voice shaking, already pulling off her apron. I appreciate the job, I really do, but this morning there was a live frog in my purse. Yesterday, liquid soap in my shoes. And the day before that, she stopped, like it physically hurt to remember. The day before that, I almost broke my neck on the stairs. Someone poured oil on the steps. Alex rubbed his face. Tired, genuinely bone-deep tired. I'm sorry, he said, and he meant it. I'll still pay you for the month. It's not about the money, sir. She looked at him, pity and affection tangled together. Those girls don't need a nanny. They need their dad. That line stayed in the air long after she left. That same night, Evelyn Cross came for dinner. Evelyn was 30, beautiful in that magazine cover way, the kind of woman who turned heads just by walking into a room, blonde, polished, red lipstick that never smudged, not even after 3 glasses of wine. She and Alex had been engaged 8 months, and like most nights, the conversation went the same place. Alex, honey, you need to think about this clearly, she said, smoothing her napkin with practiced calm. I know you love your girls. Nobody's questioning that. But look at you. You're exhausted. The company needs you at 100%, and instead you're checking texts about whatever nanny quit this week. Alex didn't answer. He took a sip of wine. Fairview Academy has an excellent program, she went on. Structure, discipline, other girls their age. It would be good for them. It's the best thing for them, Alex, and honestly for you too. He sighed. They're 6, Evelyn. Exactly. The younger they start, the easier it is for them to adjust. Alex didn't say no. He didn't say yes either. But to Evelyn, that silence was a door left open, and she planned to keep pushing through it. What neither of them knew was that at the top of the staircase, 2 identical pairs of eyes had heard every word. Ava grabbed her sister's hand. Did you hear that? Mia nodded, eyes wide, not with tears yet, more like fear. She wants to send us away. Dad won't let her. But even as she said it, she wasn't sure she believed it. The next day, Alex had a meeting at the house. 4 investors from Whitman Industries, coming at 6 to close a deal that had taken months to put together. Girls, he said that morning, crouching to their level, today's a big day for Daddy. I need you two to behave, please. We're gonna be amazing, Ava said, with a smile that should have set off alarms in any parent. Alex, exhausted, chose to believe her. Mistake. 6 o'clock sharp, the investors arrived. Sharp suits, polite smiles, leather briefcases. 6:10, everything went to hell. Because when Mr. Grayson, the lead investor, sat down on the living room couch, something crunched under him, and in half a second, a cloud of flour exploded out of the cushions, coating him head to toe in white. The silence that followed could have cut glass. What was that? He coughed, brushing flour off a $3,000 suit. Alex closed his eyes. A second later, giggling from the hallway, 2 identical heads peeking around the corner, hands over their mouths. Ava! Mia! His voice boomed through the house. He didn't raise it often. When he did, everyone noticed. The investors, deeply uncomfortable, made their apologies and left minutes later, saying they'd think it over. Translation, The deal was dead. Evelyn, who'd been there to support Alex, waited until the door shut behind the last one before she spoke. "See?" she said, arms crossed. "This is exactly what I've been telling you." Alex didn't answer, jaw tight, fists clenched. "They're not just mischievous, Alex. They need real structure, someone who's actually going to raise them." She stepped closer, dropping her voice into that soft tone she used when she wanted to win an argument without looking like she was arguing. "Boarding school isn't a punishment, baby. It's an opportunity. For them. And for you. And for the first time." Alex didn't say no. He just stood there, staring at the flower still dusting the carpet, feeling a tiredness that went all the way to his bones. "Maybe you're right," he murmured. Evelyn smiled. Small, almost invisible. A smile of victory. What neither of them saw were two small shapes hiding behind the dining room door, listening to every word. Ava looked at her sister. This time, there were real tears. "Dad said yes," she whispered. "That night, the last nanny, the fifth one that year, quit." "I'm so sorry, Mr. Whitman," she said, suitcase already packed, "but after today, I just can't." Alex sat alone in his study, a drink he never touched, and a decision he didn't want to make. The next morning, someone knocked on the door. A woman, late 20s, brown hair pulled into a ponytail, simple but neat clothes, and a smile that somehow didn't fit the seriousness of that house. "Good morning. I'm Emma Bennett. I'm here about the nanny position." Alex looked her over, not expecting much. "You know what you're walking into?" "The agency mentioned a few things," she said, smile intact. "Frogs, soap, flour, apparently. And you still came. And I still came." There was something in her eyes, determination maybe, or just plain hunger for the job. Honestly, it was both. Emma was studying nursing at Riverside Community College, and she needed something with flexible hours and decent pay to cover tuition. That was the whole plan. Finish school, help people, build something of her own. Nothing about mansions, nothing about millionaires. Alex, out of options, decided to give her a shot. "1-week trial," he said. "If you survive it, we'll talk contract." Deal. What Alex didn't know was that Emma had her own reasons for not backing down from anything. She'd grown up with a mom who worked 20 years cleaning at a public hospital, came home every night smelling like antiseptic, feet swollen, and somehow always had a smile for her 3 kids. "Honest work is never small, Emma," her mom used to tell her. "What's small is how some people treat the folks who do it." That line stuck. So when the agency warned her about the house with the terrible twins, all she thought about was the paycheck, the flexible hours, and how 6 months there could get her through her last year of school without another loan. She wasn't thinking, not for 1 second, about falling for anybody, especially not some rich guy with a private driver and a house the size of a hotel. What she didn't know was that 2 pairs of eyes were watching her from the upstairs railing, sizing her up like generals studying a new enemy. "This one looks pretty confident," Mia said, narrowing her eyes. "Let's see how long that lasts," Ava said. The first trap was simple, almost too simple. A bucket of water balanced on the playroom door. Emma walked in. The water dropped. But instead of screaming or getting mad, she stood there, soaked, and let out a laugh so genuine the girls, hiding behind the couch, froze. "Wow," she said, wringing out her hair. "Straight to the point. I respect it." She stepped out from behind the couch, clapping slowly. "Which one of you planned this? Because that angle was perfect. That's not luck, that's engineering." Ava and Mia looked at each other, confused. Nobody had ever reacted like that. "That was me," Ava admitted, a little unsure. "Congratulations, engineer. Now help me clean this up before your dad thinks we flooded the house." And just like that, no yelling, no punishment, no drama, Emma grabbed a towel and started mopping up right alongside them, laughing the whole time. The second trap was more elaborate. Sugar swapped for salt right before breakfast. Emma took a bite of eggs, made a face like she'd been personally betrayed, and looked at the twins with narrowed eyes, like a detective in a bad crime show. "Somebody," she said, pointing her fork at them, "declared war on flavor in this house." The girls giggled. "Fine, challenge accepted." She walked to the kitchen and came back with 2 bowls of fruit, covered in salt. "Let's see how you two like the trade." They took a bite, made identical faces of horror, and the 3 of them ended up laughing so hard that Alex, from his study, poked his head out, confused by the sound. A sound he hadn't heard in that house in a long time. Laughter. Real laughter. He stood in the doorway watching his daughters, his serious, withdrawn daughters who barely spoke to him lately, cracking up with a total stranger. Something shifted in his chest. He didn't have a name for it. Days passed. Emma didn't just survive the trial week, she crushed it. Not because the pranks stopped, because somehow she'd learned to play the game right along with them without ever losing control of the room. And slowly, the girls started to trust her. One night while Emma helped them into pajamas, Mia, always the quiet one, asked almost in a whisper, "Do you have a boyfriend?" Emma laughed. "No. Why?" "No reason," Ava said, way too fast, shooting her sister a look. That night, once Emma left, the twins sat cross-legged on their bedroom floor, heads together, whispering like they were planning a coup. "If Emma falls for Dad," Mia started. "Then Dad doesn't marry Evelyn," Ava finished, "and we don't get sent away." They looked at each other with that total, unshakable certainty only 6-year-olds have when they've made up their minds. "Phase 1, Ava said, dead serious. "Get them stuck together. A lot." The plan started the next day. The first move was clumsy but effective. They convinced Alex there was a weird noise coming from the pantry, right when Emma was in there restocking groceries. Alex, suspicious but curious, went to check. The second he stepped inside, the door slammed shut. "Girls!" he shouted, rattling the handle. "Open this right now!" From the other side, 2 voices answered in perfect unison, dripping with fake innocence. "We can't, Dad, it's stuck." Inside, in the dark, Alex and Emma stood way too close together, surrounded by canned goods. "This is," he started. "Embarrassing," she finished. "Yeah, I know." An awkward silence, then a nervous laugh from both of them. "Your daughters are evil geniuses," Emma said, feeling around in the dark. "No offense. None taken. You're completely right." 10 minutes later, that felt like an hour, Alex finally forced the handle open. Nobody was on the other side. The girls were already outside playing, looking way too innocent to actually be innocent. Alex looked at them somewhere between exasperated and something close to a smile fighting to break through. "I'm going to have to watch you 2 more closely," he told Emma. "Good luck with that," she said. "I've been trying for a week." It was the first time they'd laughed together, really laughed, without the weight of work sitting between them. And it was the first time Alex let himself look at her 1 second too long. The weeks that followed brought more chaos, more laughter, and slowly, more of Alex, actually home. Something was changing. Before, he'd come home from work, wave hello from across the room, and disappear into his study until bedtime. Now, some nights he sat on the living room floor, while Emma ran pillow fight battles that ended with all 3 of them flat on the floor, out of breath, laughing. "I've never seen him like this," the family driver told the housekeeper one afternoon, watching through the kitchen window as Alex chased his daughters around the yard, tie loose, shirt untucked. "Not since Sarah passed. I haven't seen him laugh like that." Emma overheard it by accident, standing near the kitchen door. Something warm settled in her chest, something she didn't want to name, because she knew perfectly well that man was engaged, that they lived in completely different worlds, that she had a plan, finish school, work at a hospital, build a life that was hers, no one else's, and falling for her boss, a rich engaged man with 2 kids and a grief he still carried, was, plain and simple, a terrible idea. She repeated it to herself every night like a prayer. "Don't fall for him, Emma. Don't fall for him." But hearts don't usually listen. Evelyn, for her part, started noticing the changes. Not right away. At first she figured it was just stress easing off or whatever, but she started showing up at the house more, and every time she did, something went wrong. One afternoon, walking through the front door, a balloon full of red paint dropped straight onto her head, soaking her designer dress from head to toe. "What the hell?" she shrieked, paint dripping down her perfectly made-up face. The twins, hiding behind the curtains, bit their lips to keep from laughing. Emma came running with a towel, faking horror. "Oh my gosh, Ms. Cross, I'm so sorry. They were painting a mural to surprise their dad and—" "This is not an apology. This is a ruined $2,000 dress." "You understand, they're kids," Emma said, with a calm that bordered on insulting. "You know how creative they get at this age." Evelyn shot her a look that could have melted steel, but she said nothing else. Not with Alex coming down the stairs right at that moment. "What happened here?" he asked, alarmed. "Nothing, sweetie," Evelyn said, forcing a smile that clearly cost her something. "Little paint accident. No big deal." She laughed, a hollow, manufactured laugh that never reached her eyes. But the second Alex turned to grab her a clean towel, her whole expression changed. She looked at Emma, dead on, cold enough to drop the room's temperature 10 degrees. I know what you're doing, she said, barely moving her lips. I have no idea what you mean, Emma said, holding her stare without blinking. Don't play games with me, Nanny. And she walked off, leaving that expensive perfume behind her, now mixed with red paint, smelling frankly ridiculous. The second visit was worse. Evelyn came in through the side door, the one leading straight to the kitchen hallway, and didn't make it 3 steps before her heels hit a puddle of liquid soap, carefully spread across the floor. She went down hard, with a scream loud enough to reach the backyard. This time Alex actually came running. Evelyn, are you okay? She let him help her up, furious, shaking soap off her dress. I'm fine, she snapped, in a tone that said the opposite. Just slipped a little. Alex looked down the hallway. The twins peeked around the corner, hands behind their backs, wearing the most exaggerated innocent faces imaginable. Girls, he started, warning in his voice. Wasn't us, Ava said quickly. The floor was just slippery, Mia added, dead serious. Emma arrived right then, hand over her mouth, faking shock. Oh no, must have been the cleaning crew. I'll tell them to be more careful. Evelyn stared at her, dead on, unblinking, and for the first time there was more than annoyance in her eyes. There was suspicion. That night after Evelyn stormed off, furious, stained, dignity a little bruised, Alex stood in the kitchen with a glass of water when Emma walked in to put away dishes. We should talk about today, he said, not turning around. About the soap. I swear I have no idea how it got there. Emma. His tone was serious, not angry, just tired. She went quiet. I know it wasn't you directly, he continued, leaning against the counter, but I also know you haven't exactly tried to stop it. Emma looked down. With all due respect, Mr. Whitman. Alex, you've been here 3 months. You can call me Alex. She nodded, throat tight. With all due respect, Alex, your daughters are trying to tell you something, and I think you already know that. He stood there in silence. A long, heavy silence. They don't want you to marry her, Emma said finally gently. And it's not just kids being difficult. What do you mean? Emma hesitated. She knew she was on dangerous ground. Not her place, not her life. But she also knew if she didn't say it now, she might never get another chance. I mean, kids notice things adults sometimes choose not to see. Evelyn's sweet to you, affectionate even. But with them, she stopped. Go on. With them, she's different. When you're not looking. Alex's jaw tightened. He said nothing for a long moment. She says it's what's best for them, he murmured, more to himself than to Emma. The boarding school, the discipline. And what do you think? Emma asked, soft but firm. Not what she says is best. What you know deep down actually is. Alex looked at her, really looked at her, maybe for the first time since she'd walked into that house, and something shifted between them, something neither one was ready to put into words. It's late, he said suddenly, looking away. You should head home. Right. Of course. Emma left the kitchen, heart pounding way too fast, and Alex stood there alone, untouched glass of water on the counter, thinking about a conversation with himself he'd been avoiding for 2 years. One Tuesday, the twins' school shut down unexpectedly for an electrical issue, and Emma, unable to find backup childcare on short notice, had to bring them straight to Whitman Industries. It'll just be a couple hours, she promised over the phone, voice tight. I swear they'll behave. Emma, it's a 40-story building full of executives. I'm not sure behave is a concept these two are familiar with. I have faith in humanity, and in them. Alex sighed, resigned. Fine, bring them. The first 2 hours went by without incident, which shocked everyone. The girls sat in the conference room next to Alex's office, drawing with crayons on company letterhead, while Emma reviewed notes for an upcoming exam. The trouble started when Mr. Grayson, yes, the flower guy, showed up for a follow-up meeting, ready to give Alex a second shot at the deal. Ava spotted him through the glass door and went pale. It's the flower guy, she whispered, tugging her sister's sleeve. We have to apologize, Mia said, unusually serious. It's our fault he almost lost his job. Before Emma even noticed, the twins slipped into the conference room, right as the meeting started, standing in front of 6 executives, hands clasped together. Alex, mid-sentence, went completely silent. Girls, what are you doing here? We came to say sorry, Ava said, looking straight at Mr. Grayson. About the flower thing. We didn't mean to get you that upset. We just wanted to make Dad laugh. He almost never laughs. Mr. Grayson, caught off guard, didn't know what to say. And we promise next time you come to the house, no traps, Mia added solemnly. Well, almost promise. An awkward silence filled the room. Then Mr. Grayson burst out laughing, surprising everyone, including himself. "You know, Whitman," he said, wiping a tear of laughter, 30 years in this business, and that's the most honest apology I've ever gotten from anyone, including my own partners." He looked at the twins with unexpected warmth. "Apology accepted. One condition. Next time, give me a heads up before the prank so I can wear something I don't mind ruining." The girls giggled, relieved, and Mr. Grayson, to the shock of the entire board, signed the deal that same afternoon, saying any man who could raise kids that honest deserved his trust in business too. When the meeting ended, Alex found Emma in the hallway, pale, already apologizing before he could say a word. "I'm so sorry, I didn't see them slip out. Alex cut her off, gently taking her by the shoulders. "They just saved the biggest deal of the year." "What?" "And I think," he said, a smile escaping before he could stop it, "they just taught me something I'd forgotten. Honesty beats perfect every time." That night, driving home, Emma couldn't stop smiling. The twins passed out in the back seat. That same week came the first real gut punch of a revelation. One afternoon, straightening the girls' room, Emma found an old wooden box tucked under a pile of stuffed animals, worn soft with time. Inside were photos. A woman with a wide smile, dark hair, holding two identical babies, Sarah, and underneath the photos, a crayon drawing with the crooked handwriting of a little kid, for when Mum comes back from heaven, so she knows we miss her a lot, and Dad does too, even if he doesn't say it. Emma felt her throat close up. She put everything back in the box, carefully, like she was handling something sacred, and she understood, right then, with a clarity that hurt, those pranks were never just pranks. They were screams, desperate ways of asking someone, anyone, and to stay, to not leave, to not abandon them the way they already felt the world had once. That night, unable to hold it in, she told Alex what she'd found. He listened in silence, eyes bright, visibly fighting not to break down in front of her. "I never knew what to do with their pain," he admitted, voice rough, "because I didn't know what to do with mine. Working was easier than feeling, and I think, without realizing it, I left them alone with it." "You didn't leave them alone," Emma said softly. "You just got a little lost along the way. That happens to anyone who loses someone like that. What matters is, you can still find your way back." Alex looked at her, and for a second something in his face softened completely. "Thank you," he said simply, "for seeing them, really seeing them." "It's easy to see them," Emma said, small smile. "They're wonderful kids. They just need someone to remind them of that often." "What about me?" he asked, almost joking, though something genuinely vulnerable slipped through. "Do you see me too?" Emma froze for a second. "I should go," she said, looking away. "It's getting late." She left before he could see her blush all the way to her ears. Evelyn, meanwhile, wasn't sitting still. After the soap incident, she hired someone, without Alex knowing, to keep an eye on the house for security. Really, she wanted proof, confirmation of what her gut had been screaming for weeks, and she got it. One afternoon, just passing by, though there was nothing accidental about it, she found Alex and Emma in the kitchen, laughing, making hot chocolate for the girls, shoulder to shoulder, way too close, way too comfortable. She stood in the doorway, watching. Nobody saw her. And in that moment, suspicion turned into certainty. She waited, patiently, like a snake, picking her moment. That moment came one afternoon when Alex left for an urgent meeting, leaving Emma alone with the girls who were down for a nap. Evelyn showed up unannounced. "We need to talk," she said. No greeting, walking straight into the kitchen where Emma was folding laundry. "Afternoon, Ms. Cross." "Save the politeness." Evelyn crossed her arms, looking her up and down with the kind of contempt only someone who's had everything and is scared, for the first time, of losing something, can manufacture. "I know what you're doing." "I don't know what you mean." "Of course you do. The giggling, the little looks, the Alex. You've been here 3 months. You can call me Alex." Emma's stomach dropped. She didn't know Evelyn had overheard that. "I'm just doing my job," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. "Your job is watching kids, not warming up my fiancé's bed." The hit landed clean, cruel, calculated. "That has never happened," Emma shot back, voice shaking with anger, not fear. "And it never will. Alex is engaged to you." "Oh, it's Alex now?" Evelyn smiled, the kind that doesn't warm anyone, only cuts. "Look, honey, let me be crystal clear since you clearly need it spelled out." She stepped closer, dropping her voice, every word landing like a stone. "You're just the nanny, so enjoy these days, sweetheart. because the second I marry him, you're fired. And those girls? Boarding school. Far away. Emma said nothing. The kitchen air went cold and heavy. Oh, did you actually think you had a shot? Evelyn added, a short, dry laugh. That's cute. She turned and walked out, leaving that expensive perfume and a silence thick with humiliation. Emma stood there, hands shaking, tears burning her eyes. Not because she thought she had any right to feel something for Alex, not because she expected him to feel it back, but because deep down, some part of her knew Evelyn was right about one thing. They lived in different worlds. And wanting more than this was only going to break her heart. That night she made a decision. The next day she walked into Alex's study, hands clasped tight, trying to keep her voice from shaking. I need to talk to you. Alex looked up from his paperwork, immediately catching something different in her tone. Everything okay? I think it's time you find another nanny for the girls. Dead silence. I'm sorry. My semester's wrapping up in a few weeks. Half a lie, technically true, but not the real reason. And I need to focus on my clinical hours. I can't keep this schedule. Alex stood up slowly, not taking his eyes off her. That's not actually what's going on here, is it? Emma looked down. Emma, it's for the best, she said, voice cracking slightly. For everyone. Did Evelyn say something to you? The question hit like ice water. Emma didn't answer, but her silence said enough. Alex closed his eyes, breathing deep, a controlled fury Emma had never seen from him. What did she say? It doesn't matter. It matters to me. He took a step closer, voice low, but sharp enough to end any argument. Tell me what she said. Emma finally looked up. She said, the second you two get married, I'm fired, and the girls go to boarding school. And you know what, Alex? Maybe she's right. Maybe I shouldn't be here getting attached to a family that isn't mine, a life that was never supposed to be mine. That's not true. It is. Emma's voice broke completely, weeks of holding it together finally giving out. You're a wealthy man, engaged, with a whole life built, and I'm the nanny working nights to pay tuition. I don't belong in this world, Alex, and the longer I stay, the harder it's going to be, for me and for them, when I finally leave. The words hung in the air, raw and painfully honest. Alex stood silent for a long moment. What if I don't want you to go? He asked finally, in a voice Emma had never heard from him, vulnerable, real. Alex, listen to me. He stepped closer, and this time Emma didn't back away. Since Sarah died, I thought the only way to give my girls what they needed was finding someone to fill that space. A mother figure, someone to give them structure, stability. Emma's breath caught. She didn't move. That's why I got engaged to Evelyn, because I thought that's what I needed, what they needed. He paused, voice softening even more. But these past few months... Alex, she started, barely a whisper. Let me finish. She nodded, throat tight. They didn't need a textbook mother figure, Emma. They needed someone who actually saw them, who got messy with them, who listened even when they were talking complete 6-year-old nonsense. And that person walked into my house 3 months ago disguised as a nanny. Emma felt her heart climb into her throat. Alex, this isn't right. You're engaged. I know. And I work for you. I know. And we live completely different lives. I know that too. He stepped closer until they were inches apart. But I've spent 2 years feeling like a ghost in my own life. And since you showed up, for the first time, I feel like a person again, not a CEO. Not a father who doesn't know what to do with his own grief, just someone who can laugh again. And that means more to me than any difference in worlds. The silence that followed was full of everything neither of them had dared say out loud. I can't be the reason you end your engagement, Emma whispered, though her voice wasn't nearly as sure as before. You're not, Alex said. Evelyn is the reason I'm ending my engagement. You just helped me see what I should have seen months ago. Right then, a noise at the door made them spring apart. Standing in the doorway, face pale, eyes burning with barely contained fury, Evelyn. Well, well, she said, voice shaking. What a touching scene. Evelyn, Alex started. No, don't. She stepped into the room, footsteps sharp, hands trembling slightly. I've been watching this happen for weeks, Alex. Watching you push me aside for a nanny who doesn't even have her degree yet. Watch it, Alex warned, tone leaving zero room for argument. Watch it? Evelyn let out a bitter laugh. I have to watch it. Me, 8 months planning a wedding, picking the venue, the dress, the guest list, while you fall for the help. Don't talk about her like that. It's the truth. The shout echoed through the whole house, and somewhere at the top of the stairs, two identical pairs of eyes watched the whole scene, hands clasped, barely breathing. "You know what, Alex?" Evelyn continued, voice gone cold and calculated, like she'd finally decided to stop pretending. "Fine, we're done. But before I go, you should know the truth, since apparently we're being honest tonight." She turned to Emma, smile turning cruel. "I never cared about your daughters, Alex. Not for 1 second. I cared about what you could give me, your money, your name, the life you were going to offer. And the second we got married, those kids were going straight to the farthest boarding school I could find, and they weren't coming home for holidays if I had anything to say about it." The silence that followed was absolute, devastating. Alex looked at her like he was seeing her for the first time. "Get out of my house," he said, calm in a way that was scarier than any shout. "Now." Evelyn, realizing too late what she'd just admitted, went white. "Alex, I didn't mean, get out of my house." His voice hit hard enough that even the twins up on the stairs flinched. Evelyn, eyes brimming with tears of rage and humiliation, grabbed her bag and left, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the windows. The silence afterward was strange, heavy, but somehow freeing too. Alex stood in the middle of his study, breathing deep, like he'd just set down 2 years' worth of weight. Then he noticed Emma, still there, eyes wide, not sure what to say. "Emma." "I should go," she said, stepping back. This was a lot." "Wait." Alex caught her hand gently, stopping her. "Don't go, please. Alex, you just ended your engagement. You need time, space. You don't need this right now." "I've needed this for 2 years," he said, sincerity cracking his voice. "I just didn't know how to ask for it." They stood there, looking at each other, everything they'd left unsaid for months hanging between them. "I'm scared," Emma admitted, barely a whisper, "that this is just the relief of ending an engagement, that in a few weeks you'll realize this wasn't real. And I'm scared our lives are so different this ends up hurting all of us. Me, the girls." Alex looked at her with a tenderness she'd never seen from him before. "Then let's build something real," he said. "Slow, if we need to. No rushing. You don't drop school. You don't drop your goals. I don't want a textbook mother figure for my daughters, Emma. I want you, your career, your dreams, all of it. I just want us to try." Emma felt tears, a different kind this time, spill down her cheeks. "Okay," she whispered, "let's try." And right then, 2 shrieks of joy erupted from the staircase, followed by the sound of small feet running toward them. "I knew it!" Ava yelled, tackling them both into a hug. "The plan worked," Mia added, jumping in. Alex, startled, looked at Emma over his daughters' heads. "Plan? What plan?" Emma burst out laughing, the first of many that night. "Long story. I'll tell you later. Let's just say these two are way smarter than they let on." The months that followed brought changes nobody, not even Alex, could have imagined possible half a year earlier. The house stopped feeling like a battlefield and started feeling, for the first time since Sarah died, like a home. Alex learned to come home earlier, to sit on the floor and play, even when his back complained about it later, to laugh without guilt, understanding that honoring his wife's memory didn't mean stopping his life. It meant showing his daughters that love finds its way back, even after loss. Emma finished her semester with the best grades in her class, and Alex, true to his word, never once asked her to give up school. Quite the opposite. He cheered her on, listened to her practice procedures on training dummies in the living room, drove her to clinicals himself when the weather turned bad. The twins, for their part, stayed a hurricane of energy and mischief. But now, their pranks had a different purpose, to make people laugh, not to make people leave. One evening, almost a year after that day in the kitchen, Alex gathered the whole family in the backyard, under string lights he'd had hung between the trees. "I have something to say," he announced, hands trembling slightly, unusual for a man who ran board meetings without blinking. He got down on one knee in front of Emma, pulling a small box from his pocket. "Emma Bennett, you walked into this house looking for a temporary job, and you ended up giving the 3 of us our lives back. You taught my girls it's okay to laugh again after grief. And you taught me it's never too late to feel something. I'm not asking you to be my daughter's mother because you already are in every way that counts. I'm asking you to be my partner, my wife, the person I want to build the rest of my life with." Ava and Mia, holding hands, held their breath, eyes shining. Emma, tears streaming freely now, barely managed to whisper her answer. "Yes, yes, I will." The twins' screams of joy rang through the whole yard. followed by a group hug that nearly knocked Alex flat. Months later, they got married, a small, intimate ceremony, surrounded only by the people who actually mattered. Ava and Mia were the flower girls, matching dresses and all, and when the officiant asked if anyone objected to the union, both of them shouted in perfect unison from the front row, "We don't object, we planned this." The laughter that followed could be heard out on the street. Emma finished her nursing degree not long after and started working at a community clinic, exactly like she'd always dreamed, never once having to give up that part of herself to find love. And Alex, the man who, 2 years earlier, could barely meet his own daughter's eyes without breaking down, finally learned that a house isn't filled with money or rules or distant boarding schools. It's filled with laughter, with mischief, with the courage of 2 6-year-old girls who refused to give up until they found their dad, and themselves, a home again. And that's the story, all the way to the happy ending. If you made it this far, and this story got a smile out of you, or maybe a tear or two, tell me on a scale from 0 to 10, what would you rate it? I'll be reading the comments.